Dear CG thinkers, welcome. I'm excited to have you back for an updated version of this tutorial, an updated version for Fluent 2. If you're new to Fluent, you will find everything you need to get started. If you're an old user, this might be your chance to do better than the first time you took this tutorial. No, it's a joke. For you, it will be a way to get familiar with the new interface. Make yourself comfortable, open Blender. Here we go. We start by looking the add-on settings. Press F to bring up the menu and go to the Other Adjustment button. Here, you will find everything that concerns the parameters of the automatic calculations of the add-on. Indeed, there is no question of adjusting by hand every time the bevel or cylinder number of segments. The calculation is done automatically with the parameters found here. I suggest you to copy the same values before starting the tutorial. Is it good for you? Then click on OK to start the modeling. Press the F key and go to the Creation tool. In order to start in the center, display the grid with a right click on the floor. Left click on the center point of the grid. As you move the cursor, you can see the rectangle forming. Hold Shift to draw from the center, move to the same place on the grid as I did, and left click again to complete the drawing. Now, you have to understand something absolutely essential in the use of Fluent. All adjustments are made by horizontal movement of the cursor. Movement to the right increase values and movements to the left reduce values. Everything, absolutely everything works on this principle in Fluent. Another important element is the validation of an adjustment in Fluent. Here we adjust the thickness of the box. I set the value to about 1.5. To validate this adjustment, I hold the left click to bring up this circular menu. In this menu, you will find additional options for the adjustment that is being made. Here, I simply want to confirm my operation. While holding down the left click, I move the mouse toward the Validate button, and when I release the click, the button is activated. So remember that we keep left click to display the circular menu, we move the cursor on a button, and we release the click to use the button on which we are. Let's go for the second adjustment. Hold the left click and go for the first bevel. Release the left click to start the action. Once again, by moving horizontally, you can adjust the size of the bevel. Once you are satisfied, hold down the left click to display the circular menu and validate the operation. If you start to understand the principle, we can go a little faster. Let's add a third adjustment, the second bevel. Once again, move the cursor horizontally to adjust the size. Then validate by holding down the left click and moving the cursor to validate. Nothing more to do here. We can keep Fluent. To do this, hold down the left click and move right to the Kit button. We will now separate the cover from the rest of the object. To do this, we will perform an operation called a slice, which allows us to slice an object into two objects. A little bit like a katana on a pineapple. Press the F key. Choose the slice operation, place the cursor on the center of the object and right click. This displays the grid. I mark the middle and draw a rectangle, and once again I use the Shift key to draw from the center. Once I'm satisfied, left click again to validate the drawing, which brings us to the first adjustment, which is always the same, the thickness of the object. So the first little trick is, if you want to go completely through your objects, you can use the cross button available in the circular menu. Hold the left click and go to cross, release the left click to start the action. Small information, by the way, when you see letters in brackets on the buttons of the interface, there are shortcuts that allow you to perform the same action without using the button. This tutorial is a beginner tutorial. I will not use any shortcuts during this video, but now know they are there, and they will allow you to go faster and faster as you get familiar with the add-on. Depending on your viewport settings, you may or may not see the separation between the two objects. In any case, to make this separation visible, we will add a bevel on both objects. Select them both, press F, and use the Add Bevel button. We continue with the modeling of the bottom part. Select this part of the object and press the F key. Select the Inset tool. The first steps are always the same. I display the grid with a right click on the object face. I start my drawing in the bottom and middle of the grid. I hold the Shift key to draw from the center and do something that looks like this. I validate with another left click and start to adjust the thickness. To go faster, I hold the left click to display the circular menu and use the cross function. I continue with the addition of a first bevel. Once validated, we start on something new. We will add an array. Here, the adjustment works a little differently because it's based on a widget that represents the 3 axes of the space. To use it, follow the guide. First, click on the axis on which you want to work. Moving the cursor adjusts the distance between 2 repetitions. If you press the C key, moving the mouse adjusts the number of repetitions. If you press the C key again, you return to the adjustment of the distance between objects. When you have finished working on this axis, left click to disable this axis. Now, if you move your mouse, nothing happens. We don't need anything else. We validate this adjustment by clicking on the Validate button in the center of the widget. Last adjustment for this cut, we are going to make the extrusion a little deeper. Go to the Inset Thickness button. Once satisfied, validate and exit. Let's continue with side handles on this same face. Select the slice operation, display the grid and draw a rectangle in the same way. Once again, we will use the cross function. Now, let's discover a new type of cut. Select what will be your future handle, press F and select the simple cut. In the toolbar, select the face inset operation. So, what happens? A destructive version of the object is made and presented to you in edit mode. You will be able to transform a face into a Boolean object which will work like any Fluent object. The main use of this tool is the realization of inset, as we will do now. Select the central face and press the I key. move your mouse to get the same result. Validate the operation with a left click, keep your face selected, and press the Enter key. You can see that the face has been transformed into a Fluent object that we can use to create our handle. After validating the depth of the cut, go for the mirror adjustment by clicking on the other side of the box. You will create another handle on the opposite side. Click the Validate button in the center of the widget and exit Fluent. Let's continue with a cut that will show us a little bit of grid manipulation. On the side of the cut, call the Cut tool and right-click on the object to display the grid. Click on the Rotation button to display the widget. Click on the red button and move the cursor to rotate the grid. A new left click validates this axis. Click on the Central button to validate the whole rotation. We will now proceed with the drawing, but we will not use the rectangle. Click on the Shape button. This tool allows us to draw custom shapes, polygons. Reproduce the drawing in the same way as I did. Since the left click is assigned to editing a new point, to validate your drawing, left click with the Shift key held down. You can see that the adjustment of the thickness of the shape is not centered. To do this, we will change the offset. Hold the left mouse click and fetch the Offset button. By moving the cursor, it will be extremely difficult to get the 0 value accurately. To enter a value with the numeric keypad, hold the Shift key, type 0, release the Shift key and press Enter. For those of you who are wondering why you have to hold down the Shift key, it's simply because the key on the numeric keypad are normally associated in Blender with the orientation of the view. The one key normally sets a front of view. In order to tell the program that you don't want to change the view but enter the number 1, it is the Shift key that makes the difference. Go back to the first Solidify, Fit to find a thickness that works for you. I will take advantage of this cut to show you something very useful. If you don't really know, Fluent is a non-destructive tool. It's the core of the add-on. It's why I made it. And so everything is always editable. If, for example, your shape is not good for, while remaining in Fluent, press the Tab key to switch to Edit mode. You can then select vertices. You can move them and press the Tab key to get out of Edit mode and back into Fluent. Add a mirror effect before moving on to the next cut. After selecting the Slice tool, display the grid on the edge of the cuts you just made. You can see that the grid extends over the entire object. By default, the grid takes into account all the vertices that are in the same plane. Here, I want to display the grid only on this face. I use the Extend button of the Grid toolbar, and by making a new right-click on the face, I see that the grid is now restricted to this one. I simply draw a circle with a small depth. I add a mirror effect, and I continue with a simple cut on the object I just created. Nothing new here. I let you follow the manipulation on the screen. We will now use a new function to realize the crossbar. Display Boolean objects with the Fluent menu. Select the last object you just created. Now, press the F key, hold down the Shift key and click on this button. You have just done an operation that I call an extraction operation. You have extracted the Boolean object. In other words, it's a copy of your Boolean object that you can use as a visible object. By selecting this object and editing it, you will be able to modify the first solidify adjustment in order to realize the handle with a perfect positioning and radius. We are good for the bottom part. Now let's start the cover. At first, nothing new. It's a slice and a simple cut on the top. I will let you follow the video and I will film you when there is something new. I back after this small simple cut without difficulty. For the next cut, we will use a new tool to manipulate the grid. After displaying the grid on the face, use the alignment button. This feature allows you to align and resize the grid along a segment that you will define. Click on a first point and then on a second point. The grid is now aligned to the edges you have drawn. Continue with a 45 rotation of the grid. Once again, be careful, this widget does not use a click and drag process. Click on the axis, move the mouse and click again to deactivate the axis. Validate your drawing. Here is something new. We are going to modify the big rounded edge of the parts we have just cut out. To do this, select this object, then press the F key and click on the Edit button. If you remember, this rounded was originally created with the second bevel adjustment. Take a good look at what I'm about to do before you do it yourself. So we are going to back to this adjustment, but I'm not going to move the cursor at all. So I don't change the size and I'm going to bring up the circular menu to change the profile with the straight button. I validate and I kit. This is an effect that I really like and that we will have the opportunity to do it again on the other side. The rest is nothing new. I will let you follow this and I will come back right after for the creation of a screen and a keyboard which will be rich in lessons. For the screen, use a slice. Display the grid and draw a rectangle from the center of the left part. For the screen, the bevel is a bit wide. Select the two objects, press the F key and reduce the bevel. Now, let's go for the realization of the keyboard. Using a simple cut, display the grid. While drawing your rectangle, hold down both the Control key and the Shift key to force a square to be made from the center. Now, add an array, click on the red axis, set the distance between two repetitions. Press the C key and move the mouse to set the number of repetitions. In my case, I'm going up to 8. You can press the C key again to adjust the distance between two objects again. When you are satisfied, select left click to disable the current axis. Repeat the operation on the green axis. So, for those who start to cringe because there are things on the screen that don't look very good, just pretend that the problem isn't there. We will fix them later. This is a classic art surface modeling problem. This is the number one problem you will encounter. One piece of advice I can give you is don't try to fix them as soon as they appear. Anything that is in the nature of a fix is something that is done at the end. So let's go ahead and ignore those problems. Use the G and X keys to move the object and add some space on the side. Now that I've finished what I had to do there, I'm going to correct this horrible result. For more explanation on the reasons of these results, I invite you to watch a video I made especially on this subject. To summarize, this is a Blender specific mechanism. So let's move on to the correction. Select them and also select the cut object. Press the slash key to see only those objects. This will make it easier to manipulate. Select only the object that is cut. Press Tab to switch to edit mode. Use the 7 and 5 key to move to the top view and the orthographic view. The operation consists in editing ourselves the edges that will support the Boolean operations. To do this, we use the shortcut Ctrl-R to add edges that cross Boolean objects. Before leaving the editing mode, select all the edges you have just created and press the keyboard shortcut Shift F. This shortcut calls a function of Fluent called VG Cleaner. This function fixes another problem, a very unfortunate behavior of Blender, which tends to do bad things with the vertices that we had. I also made a lot of videos on the subject, and the information is also available in the documentation of the add-on in the toolbox page VG Cleaner. In short, we are back in object mode. Press the slash key again to redisplay the entire scene. Let's finalize our keyboard. Select the Boolean object that makes up the key and use the extract function. Press F key, hold Shift down the Shift key, and click on the Duplicate Extract button. Add a bevel and do the same with the last button. Select the extracted object, press the G, Z, Z keys to move them and make them stand out a bit. New feature and last little details for this part of the object. Cut a small square in the corner, add a mirror and kit. We will use the duplicate function. Display and select the Boolean object you have just created. Press the F key and click on the duplicate button. Move your mouse and drop your copy with the left mouse click. Right click to exit. You can see that once again artifacts are here. Reproduce exactly the same manipulation as for the keyboard. You display and select the Boolean objects as well as the cut object. Press the slash to isolate them and better see what you are doing. Select the cut object and press Tab to switch to edit mode. Use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl R to add edges that will pass through the Boolean objects. Select your new edges and press Shift F to use the VG Cleaner function, which returns you to object mode. Press the slash key to exit isolation mode. Now, you can be happy. You really can be happy. You solved a big problem. Clearly, you have done the hardest part. The rest is just a joke. Continue with a large rectangular cut in the lid. Let's discover a new button, the pencil, that you can see in the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. Initially allows you to continue cutting always on the same object. But you can read that if you hold down the Shift key, you restart Fluent, but on the Boolean object. On the Boolean object you just created. Hold Shift and click this button. Display the grid with the right click and use the shape button instead of the rectangle button. Simply draw a diagonal line. To validate a drawing as a path and not as a polygon, use the space bar to validate your drawing. After adjusting and validating the depth of the cut, you can adjust the thickness of the line. For the next step, use a mirror effect to form a cross. The technique you just used is a technique I call cut the cutter. In fact, here you have not cut the lid, but the Boolean object that made the hole in the lid. So you have eliminated a part of the object that was supposed to eliminate a part of the lid. And so you make the lid reappear at this point. Hard. Okay, I hope this is clear enough, even if I'm well aware that is not the most intuitive way to imagine modeling. However, this technique, which consists in cutting Boolean objects, will open new perspectives. It's actually the one that allows you to do complex things in a few clicks. Really keep this in the back of your mind. Anyway, we will have the opportunity to talk about it more than once on this channel. Last cut of this tutorial. Use the shape tool to draw a right angle. You will notice that you can draw directly on a face without using the grid. Use the Control key to activate the snap system. Once again, use the space key to validate your drawing as a path, not as a polygon. Adjust the depth, thickness, and especially add a first bevel. And now we come to the very last operation of this tutorial, editing the reinforcements in the corner of the box. Let me clarify, because I might get some questions. If you don't have the tool I'm showing you now in your add-on menu, it's because you bought the basic version and not the power trip version. I invite you to read the documentation to know how to upgrade the power trip version. Select the bottom part of the object and press the F key, then the Plat button. Your object automatically switches to edit mode. Select the faces that will be transformed into plates. As you are in edit mode, all the standard Blender selection tools are available. You can use the Control, Shift or C key to paint your selection. When you have made your selection, press the Enter key. Move the mouse cursor to adjust the thickness of the plate. Bring up the circular menu and use the mirror effect to display your plate on all 4 corners. You can now exit the tool. Repeat the operation on the lid. You will see that you will not have to adjust the thickness because Fluent remembers the last thickness used to reuse it. So there you go. Congratulations, you have just made your first model with Fluent, or you have redone this model, which you may have already done if you already had the previous versions of Fluent. In any case, I hope this will not be your last model. Otherwise, I would be very sad. Once you have subscribed to this channel, leave me your feedback in the comments about this tutorial and the new Fluent interface. Come and discuss with the community and myself on Discord. Everything is in the description. Speaking of Discord, I can't end this video without thanking all the people who helped me during the development, who tested the add-on, crashed it many times to allow me to serve you the version you have. A special thanks to Sébastien, aka CG Seb, for his help in many ways since October. And yes, I'm on this new version since October. Rewriting a program from scratch after 3 years of development is quite huge. It's quite huge. Run to the CG Seb channel because he made 2 videos about the new version of Fluent. He covers topics and gives tips that I haven't presented here. Thanks for your support. See you next time. Bye bye.